Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Quentin Cote, President and Chief Revenue Officer at Orion First. Thanks for joining me, Quentin.
Happy to be here, Jesse. Thanks for doing this.
No, I'm glad to have you on, sir, and looking forward to learning more about yourself and more on Orion First, even though I think I've known the company probably since I started in the industry, but want to get your take on it too, sir. So for those people who haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, Quentin, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and career to date in equipment finance?
Sure. So let's see, I've been broadly in the industry for a very long time. I started actually in banking. So I was working for an asset-backed commercial paper conduit business for State Street Bank in Boston back in the late 80s and early 90s. And so that's when I first got to know equipment finance companies. So we would finance, we would do warehouse financing via that vehicle. So I did that for quite a while. I also was with a private equity firm investing in equipment finance companies for a period of time. I spent a few years at a startup electronic marketplace for a few years, and then joined Orion 7 years ago. So I've been with Orion for 7 years now.
Perfect. And was it all those years worth of dealing with equipment financing organizations, or like, you know what, I want to get in this industry?
So it's always been an interesting challenge. It's an incredibly diverse and interesting business, highly fragmented with lots and lots of opportunities and different problems being solved all the time. So it's always been kind of intellectually interesting, and I have to say that the people in the industry are a great bunch of people to work with. So really by accident got to know a lot of people over the years, and
Sure.
It's been a real pleasure to maintain those relationships.
Sure. I think that's why the majority of us, once we get in, we don't leave.
I think you're right.
So Quentin, do you mind just talking about Orion First, just kind of introducing the company and what you guys do?
Sure. So we're a business loan servicing company is how we define ourselves. The majority of our business is equipment finance, lease and loan servicing, but we also do unsecured business lending servicing as well. We have roughly about 80 people. We've been in business for 22 years now. We have a range of services. The classic servicing is billing and collecting and customer service and accounting. We also do contingent collections or commercial collections on the back end, and we are actually a licensed collection agency as well.
Perfect. And headquartered in Washington
So our headquarters,
State?
Yep, we're headquartered in Washington. The office is not heavily populated these days post-COVID, but we do have an office there, and we also have an office in Phoenix, which is where we like to bring clients these days. It's an easy place to get in and out of. It's a great place to have people come visit. So that tends to be where we invite clients these days.
Well, and I'm a little biased too. But I could see logistically getting there as opposed to Gig Harbor. It's a little bit of a drive from the airport with Seattle traffic. Is always, yeah.
It is, and it's it's in the top left corner of the country, so it's pretty far from everything.
No, that's perfectly fair. So are the majority of resources today more in a hybrid environment?
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority now are fully remote. So, we've always been a company that supported hybrid work. Post-COVID, we sent everybody home, upgraded our systems, upgraded the technology, really been focused on how do we measure and monitor and track and give our people the tools they need to be successful. And it's really, people love working from home with their cats on their laps and doing their work. So it's I can't tell you how many internal calls I have with folks with their dogs jumping around behind them. So it's hard to get people back into the office once they've avoided that commute, right? So
no, the commute's huge, and I apologize if any of my fur creatures come and interrupt, or God forbid someone comes in the door and they bark. And you're just like, come on.
Yeah, and I think the technology has come an amazingly long distance just in the 3 short years we've done this. And I think there's still a long way to go, technology wise, to support remote work, to make sure that we can all get trained and collaborate the way we used to do. So we still got some work to do, but right now the benefits are outweighing costs.
Absolutely. And then, in your previous role, I mean, I think you were running the sales organization, right? And chief revenue officer,
Yep.
theoretically. I mean, that's the same.
Yeah.
So one of the things where I think COVID accelerated was the need where you could kind of sniff out if there was a good viable opportunity via this medium, as opposed to, hey, I got somebody, and then you jump on a plane and spend 3 days, and it's like, that wasn't worth us spending that time and dollars to go there.
Yeah, that's true. But one of the things that's, we always were highly successful in closing relationships by bringing people in to meet our folks. We do less of that than we used to, but we're still always now an availability and a possibility. But on the other hand, we spend a lot more time in front of the camera, actually getting to know people now on the phone and via video chat. So that's certainly not 100% of the benefit, but you get more of it than you used to get. So we get, have the opportunity to build stronger relationships with our clients that way.
Sure, absolutely. Instead of turning it into like a 2 to 5 call close, now you can almost have like a 1. And then once, I still believe we're a handshake industry, to your point. And when you have a good operational staff that you have, as a salesperson, you don't want to do the selling. Let them come in and meet the rest of the team who's going to be handling it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our people show really well, so we definitely want to get clients in front of them.
No, same page. Plus, as a salesperson, it's just easier that way. You can get someone to commit to coming to you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have an outsourcing discussion, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just a few questions I have. What types of organizations should outsource, their back office, Quentin?
Well, I would say all of them, but I would start there. But
biases aside.
That's right. So, the really easy ones to start are, management lift outs, bank startups, any types of startups who want to get, off the ground very quickly. Outsourced servicing is almost a perfectly variable cost. So you're not banking of hitting a certain number just to pay the software cost and all the hiring inefficiencies at the beginning and all the training. You can get off the ground in a matter of 2 or 3 months, which is pretty remarkable. I know that there's a lot of people start up their leasing businesses, and it takes them 15 months to write their first lease, and that's 12 months lost in the business. And it's also a risk management strategy for making sure that you're not, your servicing risk is not correlated with your portfolio risk. You separated that risk out, and it helps the lenders to, the funders to the company and all the partners to the company. So in addition, you get a world-class servicing operation with a tiny little portfolio. That's pretty tough to do. So and that said, there's also, we see opportunities anytime there's change is when people rethink their servicing. If you're a stable business and you're growing at 3% a year, not a lot of people think about the back office. When there's mergers, when there's acquisitions, when there's, that's when there's serious management changes, that's when people rethink their servicing decisions, and we tend to get opportunities. We've had opportunities of cleaning up the operations to support business sales, so we've done that at times. We've supported the merger of 2 or 3 different leasing businesses, and they couldn't get the books to come together. So we've had lots of opportunities like that.
Sure. And then from a size of the organization perspective, I'm sure you have some startups, some mid-tiered organization, and probably even some tenured organizations that have used you forever.
We do. Yeah. I mean, being around 22 years, we have some very, very long-standing clients. We don't see a lot of turnover in the clients, which is great. It's a big decision to partner with a servicing company, so people don't make that decision very lightly. But I do think that the more advanced our industry gets, the more demanding our funding sources get, our borrowers get. the more important it is and the more difficult it is to do the servicing. So it just makes a better case on an ongoing basis to outsource servicing.
Absolutely. And then it's being in that world for a couple years, it was always kind of one of those things where those requirement would pop up, because we're a very eclectic industry where we have some organizations that compete, but they do something maybe a half a percentage different than the other guy, but that's where they make all their money. So when some of these requirements present themselves, you're like, yeah, it's a great idea, but what is that going to take to do that?
Yeah, I mean, servicing is not it's rarely a source of competitive advantage for a leasing company. It's very rare. Underwriting, marketing, relationship management, those types of models of financing, funding sources, those tend to be sources of advantage. Servicing is pretty rare that it's the source of advantage. And oftentimes it's a hidden source of disadvantage. You don't know what you're missing with your customer experience. You don't see what best practices are. You don't realize you're not getting the repeat business that you think you should be getting. You don't know that you're missing it because you're not getting it. And you're, spending more on origination costs because you got to start from scratch over and over again.
Yeah, it's a two-edged sword, right? Because the organizations that are well established, or maybe it wasn't really a lift out, but you basically have a management team that went somewhere else, and there's like, I don't want to do this. However, as a servicer, you're basically dealing with their number one asset, which is their client, and it's hard for them to let go, which you understand.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we say that all the time. You're entrusting us with, your portfolio, which is incredibly valuable and important, your borrowers, which are incredibly important. You're entrusting us to some pretty important things in your business for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you give them the insight that they need to make sure that communication is happening? I know the answer because you showed me some of your technology, but I guess, how are you guys leveraging technology where they don't have to pick up the phone every day and say, hey, how's this customer doing?
Sure. So, the baseline that is one of our philosophies is transparency. So we share everything that we do with clients. So what that means is we have a client portal where you can see everything we do with a particular borrower, every single note that we take, every interaction that we have with borrowers, every transaction that we do. So full transparency there. We have the ability to share our full database of accounting and lease and loan pool data. So you can access that directly and get real-time updates if that's what you're interested in. If you don't have that capability, we will structure, and we have structured reports and tools to help evaluate that information. But if you want to drink from a fire hose, we can do that too. So we're very flexible, but we want that kind of complete transparency. You talked about insight. That's one of our foundations, obviously, is we think that we add value by helping our clients make better decisions in their business. So whether that's a marketing decision, an underwriting decision, a pricing decision, portfolio management decision, funding decision, what are we doing at Orion? And what information can we have, and how do we structure that information to help you make those decisions better? Because I think that's where you really add value. And then the second piece is again, back to the borrower experience. We invest a ton of money and energy and focus on improving the borrower experience to make sure that they're getting what they need when they need it, and in a positive experience. So we have a borrower portal, and that doesn't sound very difficult to do, but I would characterize it more as a process than as a product, because we meet every week, to understand what the borrower's needs are and how do we deliver that electronically at 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning when that business owner gets around to it and doesn't have to call in and ask for things. So that's a real piece of it. And then on the performance side, we think losses are lower when you work with us. Delinquencies and losses are lower when you work with us. That's, translates directly to the bottom line. Also allows you to borrow more cheaply, get better advance rates if you're an independent, and increase your profitability. And we've got a lot of technology focused on that to ensure that each of our people are efficient and effective. So they're collecting on late balances, that they're recovering on defaulted balances efficiently and effectively. So we invest a lot of technology on that side too.
Sure. And I know that's a separate animal compared all within itself, the whole collections, where you have certain people that specialize in like 30 days, then it's like 60 to 90, then you just keep going. And
well then. We have great people all along the way. As you gain experience, you travel down the delinquency curve, as you might imagine, and gain experience and expertise. And there's a lot of specialization in the default management area between, legal expertise and asset recovery expertise, and also just negotiating expertise.
Sure. I mean, my knowledge about it is more on the system side, where it was like, hey, we need this, and the traditional lease accounting platform does not come with that robust of a collections system.
Yeah, we actually we built an in-house collections platform for that very reason. Yeah.
Makes sense, and that was probably a really smart investment.
Yeah. We're on full revision 2 at this point. We worked with one for 10 years and just rebuilt it. So we're working on a new version.
It's always a fun thing where it's like, oh, wait, what do I have to do again? No. So a follow-up question on the servicing side. Because before I went into it, people would be like, well, especially selling software, right? When people were utilizing a third-party servicer, you're just like, well, aren't you at enough volume now where it's time for you to proverbially grow up and get your own system?
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know at that point in time, but is there a volume where people get to, Quentin, or is that just a theory where people outgrow a servicing organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's a fallacy to believe that you're worth more with an in-house servicing operation. I think there is I like to use the word illusion of control in that expression, because you think you're in control because you can walk down the hallway and talk to Mary, who runs your servicing shop. But first of all, Mary's no longer there. She's at home. But second of all, what really creates control is transparency and communication. So, with the investments that we make, we think that we can provide more transparency and more control than an in-house operation. And I can promise you, we're investing more than you could do in-house. An off-the-shelf software package, the pace of change, you can't customize that the same way that what we're doing. We can change and modify our systems and the way we deliver data very quickly, and make sure you know what's going on with your portfolio. So we think that we can surpass your ability to do it yourself at almost any scale. Sure, if you got $20 billion portfolio, fine, go for it. But it's also a matter of management distraction. Where should you be spending your energy? Should you be spending 10 to 20 to 30% of your time thinking about the back office, or should you be spending that time on funding and pricing and underwriting and marketing? Where you can really differentiate yourself. So we think that at any size, that makes a huge benefit. And also outsourced servicing, just like a backup servicer, it reduces risk. It helps funders know that no matter what happens to the business, the portfolio is going to be okay. It's going to be well cared for. So it's in some respects an insurance policy.
Sure. And since you went into that backup, outsource versus backup, do you mind just kind of going a little bit deeper in there? Because people ask that all the time, where it's like, what's the difference between, because there's people that have their own back office, but yet they have a shadow servicer or a backup servicer. Do you mind just kind of explaining that?
Sure. So in particular, large funding sources and rating agency rated transactions need to know that each of the components are, if not investment grade, very high quality and uncorrelated. So that if one, and the idea here is, hey, if my originator has financial difficulty and has trouble originating, they're also going to have trouble servicing. So So what they do is they separate, you want to separate the portfolio risk from the business risk. And the best way to do that is to have a backup servicer. Now, a lot of people will want to service themselves. And so what a rating agency will do, or a bank who's getting their loan portfolio, their lease portfolio basically rated, will say, well, now we have to have a backup. So what a backup does is get a monthly tape, tests the tape, make sure they can step in the event that the primary servicer, the smaller originator, if they have difficulty, they can swap out the servicing very quickly. So that's always been a small business of ours. I know that a lot of our competitors out there have much bigger backup portfolios, but we've been very much focused on the primary business. The upside of that is when we do get hired as backup, we have actual capacity to step in and do it. I would argue that in the past, there were perhaps some backups that were hoping that they would never get asked to primary because they had such a giant backup portfolio that it's just a gamble. So I won't name any names, but the good news for us is we could actually step in, and do the work, and we'd actually look forward to doing it. So,
absolutely, I was always curious. The organization I worked for didn't do any of the backup servicing, but conceptually it makes sense.
Yeah, we do it for relationship purposes more so than as a big profit center for us. We know we can, this, as this is a really, really long game. We will develop a relationship and 5 years later earn the servicing business. It's not, people don't make their decisions by looking in a magazine. They gain awareness that way, but they're not making their decisions that way. So, getting known in the industry, being reliable, getting to know the funding sources, becoming trustworthy for them. That's all part of the big objective.
I mean, I'm going on my 19th year now, and there's things that I've been working on, I think, since August of 2005 that I'm still kind of like, come on, like, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. But God forbid when you actually do get an opportunity and you can't deliver.
Yeah. And we as an organization have gotten a lot better at saying this doesn't fit. When we were a small company for 15 years, we would basically be asked to jump and we'd say how high, and that came from the scrappiness of being a small company. As we get bigger, two things happen. One is that the complexity itself becomes a hurdle. And the second one is, hey, we actually kind of know what we're doing. We do know best practices. We kind of know the right way to do things. And people pay us for that advice. They don't, they're not asking for us to just do what they want us to do.
Sure. And it's always hard, right? Especially on the business development side, and selling software for all those years where it's like, could you just make it do this one thing? And it's like, it's just the one. And then it's like, I don't see why we can't do it. Oh, and then it just steamrolls, and then you're just like, what did I just get myself into?
Then you have a Rube Goldberg invention that nobody can actually service. We're working harder at just and taking more time and asking why. What decision are you trying to make that leads you to want to do that, or what results are you looking for that make you want to have us do that on your behalf? And maybe there's a different way to do it. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And having that dialogue and developing that relationship and partnership with clients is something we're working really hard on.
Yeah. And while that's not an easy conversation, I think people appreciate that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, if you don't mind. The small business lending forum that you guys have in the spring, I guess. Is that considered spring?
This year it's going to be in March. Last year it was in February. This year will be in March. We thought it was a little cool in the evenings last year, so we're moving it a month later.
I don't know. It's 106 out here right now.
Yeah.
Who knows? But last year was my first year attending it, and you guys just did a really phenomenal job. And people that went to it beforehand said it was always, pleasurable experience and good educational sessions that you guys put on. Like, how long have you been doing that? And I guess, what are you seeing what's the advantage of doing that? Quentin?
Sure. So I don't know how many years, but it has to be it's got to be pushing 20. I mean, we've done this for a very, very long time. I know we missed 1 year during the beginning of COVID.
Sure.
But it started out as a client conference, and then it evolved into the small business lending forum when we realized that there's some benefit to be had in community, sharing best practices in a focused way. For us, we're huge beneficiaries because we get to understand what challenges our clients are facing and what the industry is facing, and then we get to reflect that in the way that we're making investments in our business. So we make sure we're very, very responsive to client needs. But it's, we think a lot of business happens there.
Sure.
As you mentioned before, relationships matter, and spending time together matters, and being focused on the very specific things that our clients and our community are concerned with. So it's a great mix. I think everybody really benefits.
No, you guys, well, and then I think the main speaker was Mikey Schaefer.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Is that
I had no idea his story, but I had already previously watched that Free Solo and The Alpinist, and I was just kind of like, wait, that was that guy? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and coincidentally, Dave Schaefer's son, which is, I think we got a pretty good deal on that one, because I think his star is rising. So, it was a real, makes your fingers and toes tingle to watch that. So,
no, that's not for me. I mean, I'm not fearful of heights, but I would not do that.
Yeah, me neither. I actually know when you're standing at the top of the cliff, some of my things don't work as well. Your knees start to shake and your head gets a little light. Yeah, I definitely don't have that in me.
And they were like, why would you jump out of a plane? Because I've been skydiving before. And I'm like, because you don't control that anyways. You just jump.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, that's 1 second of bravery.
Right. Right. As opposed to trying to like belay somebody up there or do that. No.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, thanks for talking about the lending forum. I'm looking forward to it next year. You always have a good and I appreciate the variety of the people that you have there, from C-level people to controllers to operations. So it's a really good mix of people that you guys have attend.
It is, and it's a great way to for our clients to send people and reward them for their work and spend a little time in a nice resort in Phoenix. So
well, hopefully it'll be a little warmer for them next year. In March.
Yeah. And we have a lot of fun. I mean, I think it's a fun event as well. So.
And then, so from an industry perspective right now, banks are obviously where banks are at. Are you seeing any particular verticals performing better than others?
Sure. So, it's no surprise that trucking is suffering. Everybody who's in that business is suffering, and you kind of know why. I think it probably got overheated during COVID when everything had to be delivered and there were shortages, and so people were overpaying for trucks and vehicles, and two things happened there, right? People were buying used equipment at prices they shouldn't have been buying it at, right? And then overpaying for new stuff, and now they did a 5-year lease with a truck that might be only last for 3 years. They're not going to be super excited about paying for a truck that doesn't operate. So it's not just the ebbs and flows of shipping volumes. It's also the ebbs and flows of vehicle prices that were kind of distorted during COVID. So we're seeing suffering there. Construction still seems to be reasonably strong. Hospitality seems amazingly strong as well, which is incredible to think about. Even the restaurant. We're not giant restaurant servicers, but we probably reflect the market, and they're doing okay too. So franchises are doing pretty well. So, we're definitely seeing an increase over the last 18 months in delinquencies. We've seen a small rise in defaults, but it hasn't really gotten, bad yet. 4 years ago, you'd say this is normal. So it's just we've been spoiled for the last 3 years, really.
Yeah, I mean that's the definition of, and that's where it's like, can we just move on with this thing already instead
Hmm.
of just kind of the lingering, recession, or we're doing this. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I look for silver linings all over the place, right? So I'm excited about, increases in infrastructure spending. I'm excited about this, all the talk about reshoring of manufacturing, because, all that stuff's got to be built. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about, consumers' continued interest in experiences and, hospitality being supported. So there's some positive. The rates are obviously going to have had an impact on investment levels. But I have a theory that our industry really didn't overheat as much during COVID because of supply chain problems, and because of employment constraints. So maybe that small business that would have bought the backhoe and would have hired a guy, couldn't hire a guy, didn't buy the backhoe and held on to the cash for a little longer. you
Mm,
know and so that built up his backlog and made him comfortable, so when things softened up, he didn't have an extra employee and an extra backhoe that is dragging him down. So I think some of those things that kept things slow, didn't overheat in the last few years, have, I'm hopeful that it'll keep the downturn milder for the small business owner.
nope, same page, and I
Mhm.
appreciate your optimism.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell you, we've been predicting recession now for 3 years. I can tell you, every time we put in a budget, we're like, okay, this is it. This is going to happen. We got to staff up on the back end. And for the last 3 years, it really hasn't happened. It's starting now. So here we are. But
Yep.
the government support and frankly, leasing companies did a great job through the crisis and keeping those small businesses afloat. So
Sure.
kudos to the leasing businesses for being flexible during that time period.
Sure. No, absolutely. Um, I ask everyone who comes on here to give me a little fun fact about themselves. So what makes
Mm.
Quentin tick outside of equipment finance?
Oh gosh. I wouldn't say I'm an athlete, but I like to keep moving. So I'm always, always on the move. So whether that's, walking the dogs in the woods, playing golf, taking a bike ride, traveling, I'd say I'm not a real homebody. Even though I work from home, I'm out all the time on the move.
No biathlon, triathlon,
No,
Ironman. No.
no. I played old man lacrosse until recently, but my knees recently have put up too much protest. So I might have hung up my cleats for the last time.
I like that. Old man lacrosse. Hey,
Mhm.
it's better than old man soccer. I don't know where you get more injuries, but maybe lacrosse. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's a toss up, I suspect.
Uh, I guess my final question I have for you, Quentin, is at the end of the day, why
Mhm.
should an equipment finance organization want to do business with Orion first?
Sure. So, back to those three pillars, I think that's our differentiator. A rewarding borrower experience, um, portfolio performance and insight. We can help contribute to all those three areas in a way that's very difficult to replicate yourself in-house. You can do it, but it's going to take away from your ability to originate, to manage your funding sources, to really build your organization. So we think we're a great partner. We think we've got the best people in the business, and all we do is think about servicing operations. So that's where we're focused.
Perfect. And plus, if you haven't had a chance to meet the rest of the Orion team, Dave, Jenny, Tony, it's too many to even name. They're a fun group of people to be around.
Yeah, and we have fun every day working. So
Sure.
it's we appreciate our clients. We work to create good partnerships, good long lasting partnerships where everybody benefits. So yeah, it's a great spot to be.
Nope. Well, thank you very much, Quentin. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your story and Orion's first story. And look forward to seeing you a couple weeks.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much. You have a good day. Take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care, Jesse.